Hi, everyone. I don't think we have attendees yet. Janie, let me see here. I got to make you co-host so we can see you and hear you. Okay. I think you're connected now. There we go.
Got it?
Yep.
Okay. Sorry.
Don't worry.
Line, which never rings, rang. So there you go. Okay.
All right. We're just going to wait for folks to enter the room, and then I will turn it over to you.
Okay. So I only see me in a little box at the top right. Is there a way to get full screen? Do you know?
Well, maybe because I'm sharing my screen right now.
Okay.
So after I stop sharing, you should be able to see.
Oh, and also it says view options up here at the top.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Right. Welcome, Jessica.
Hello, Jessica. All right. So I shouldn't adjust the screen. Alex, you're going to do that?
Yeah, I'm going to stop sharing. We'll wait for a few more people to join, and then if you need to, you can share your screen.
Okay.
And folks, I will be happy to field Q&A in the Q&A chat box during Janie's presentation. So please feel free to ask us questions. So just bear with us, Jessica, while we wait for a few folks to join.
Hi.
I hope it's sunny where you both are. It's a beautiful day here in New York State.
It is very nice here in Marina del Rey. There's a little bit of a marine layer which has returned, which I find awesome because it was very hot earlier this week.
Yeah, does that mean that you have sort of a sea breeze happening?
Yeah, kind of low clouds, sea breeze, but still sun. So
yeah,
perfect.
Great. Welcome, Janine. Yep, we'll just wait just a few more seconds. We were expecting a few more folks, but we want to be mindful of everybody's time. And I know Janie has an incredible presentation to get to today. We hope that this webinar finds everybody well and in good health. As a reminder, please feel free to visit HFC's website at www.wearehfc.org for additional information on caregiving resources, on HFC's programs. We also have all of our previous care newsletters on our resources page if you've missed any of the previous editions. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the screen over to you, Janie, so you guys can get started. And again, if there's any questions, please feel free to chat them to me in the webinar chat or the Q&A, and I'll help to field those questions.
Thanks, Alex.
There we
go. Okay. All right. Sorry, little technology issue, just trying to make sure that I've got the screen in front of me, gallery view. Let's try that. There we go. Okay. Hello. Thanks for being here today. My name is Janie Grauman. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I'm based in Los Angeles and have been working with people who have dementia and their family members and the people that care about them for about 25 years and currently continue to facilitate caregiver support groups for HFC. In the past, I have also run support groups for people newly diagnosed with dementia. So both the folks who have the diagnosis and the people that care for them. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is essentially a strategy that I have developed from working with these clients for all those years called the 4-step solution to dealing with dementia. I typically have a disclaimer with that, in that I wish it were a solution to dementia. It is not. It is a strategy for those who are caregiving for people with dementia. It's a different way to think about interacting with someone who has dementia. So I'm going to talk just a brief little bit about the need to manage stress and tension, then give you the 4 steps. After that, I'm going to talk again briefly about barriers, one specific barrier to implementing the 4-step solution, and then we're going to end up talking about utilizing humor in life in general, and certainly when you are a caregiver. So we may go for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, longer, all depends on if you have questions and how interactive you want this to be. Okay, so what I've learned from all these years of working with caregivers is that their lives tend to be wildly out of balance. If you think about what it is to just run your life, whatever your life encompasses, whether it's your career, your family, your interests, your whatever it is, you're already dividing your time into different categories. When you take on caregiving in addition to that, you're essentially managing your own life and all the elements of someone else's life. And if that person has dementia, one day can be great and one day can be holy hell, you know, it can change day to day. So you end up like a juggler, except with way too many balls in the air. And if you've ever done a yoga class and done a balancing pose, you know that just in our bodies, we tend to fall in and out of balance, and then we try and get back to that state of balance. So this strategy for dealing with dementia is designed to help you with the balancing. It's not a goal to reach balance, because actually what we're doing day to day is reacting to what's going on and using it as a verb. We are balancing, and we're going to fall out of that pose and we're going to come back and we're going to do it over and over and over again. So this is about retraining your brain to think about this differently. And one of the ways I'd encourage you to think about that is it's not about a finish line. It's not about a goal where you ultimately reach that place of balance, like a tree pose in yoga where you can just hold that pose indefinitely. It's about accepting the flow. You're going to have a good day and a bad day. And when you're out of balance, how to get back into balancing. So the 4-step solution to dealing with dementia, like I said, it's a paradigm shift. It's a different way to think about your interactions. And the very first step is to reframe your goal. So you may think that your goal today is, let's say you're a caregiver for your mom and you want her to take a shower today because she hasn't showered in a couple of days, or it's the daily battle to take her medications, or even proper nutrition, drink enough water. The list is virtually endless. So regardless of what concrete task you need to accomplish today, what I'd like you to start to think about is when you're going to interact with a person who has dementia, to just kind of take a breath and remind yourself that your overarching goal, really your one goal, is to get through whatever the situation is with a minimum amount of stress and tension. So let me rephrase that. Step 1 is, regardless of whatever you're doing with a person who has dementia, your only goal is to get through it with a minimum amount of stress and tension. So this also helps your mind not get so stuck in, oh, I need to do this and oh, I need to do that. It's kind of a broader, kind of a world view, if you will. I'm going to get through each and every interaction with a person who has dementia with a minimum amount of stress and tension. That's step 1. Step 2, well, how am I going to accomplish that? Step 2, let me just pause for 1 second. What I should have said before even introducing the steps is that this strategy is simple. And what I mean by simple is these steps aren't complicated. That doesn't mean it's easy to do. So simple doesn't mean easy. You'll see that one step builds logically on the next, and the steps are not complicated, but doesn't mean they're easy to do. You have to give yourself time. You got to be patient. It's relearning a way to deal with this. Okay, step one, I'm going to get through each and every interaction with a minimum amount of stress and tension. How am I going to do that? Step two, I will never underline capital letters. I will never argue with a person who has dementia. I won't do it. I will never argue with a person who has dementia for a couple of simple reasons. The first is you can't win. You can't win, and you can't win because you're not starting from a level, even playing field. There is a term that is called consensus reality. So the consensus, we're all in consensus that our reality is that today is Friday. We decided to come to this webinar on HFC's website. We're in consensus that that's what our reality is. So from that, we can have discussions, we can swap ideas, we can interact. People who have dementia, depending upon the phase of it, are often disoriented to person, whether it's themselves or other. They're disoriented to time. They don't know it's Friday, doesn't matter. To place, they may not know where they are. They may think they're in their childhood home. So trying to have a discussion, let alone, you certainly don't want an argument with someone, it's not a level playing field. You can't win. And really, everybody is better served if you don't try. So you never argue with a person who has dementia. Okay, that's step two. Step three, that sounds good, but how am I never going to argue? You're going to join in their reality. You're going to join in their reality. So we've all agreed that today is Friday. I think it's June 12th. If your loved one, if the person you are caring for says, you know, it's 4th of July, it's 4th of July. They're telling you what their reality is. And so as you go along on this journey, dealing with someone who has dementia, and for most caregivers, this is going to be a marathon. This is not going to be a sprint. You're going to be doing this for quite a while. You want an ally on this journey. You don't want an enemy. And if you challenge what they say, if they say, hey, today's the 4th of July, and you say, no, it's not. And you can show them a calendar, you can show them a wall calendar, you can show them your phone, you can show them a newspaper. You've got all the proof you need to show them you're right. Today is not the 4th of July. And it makes no difference. It not only makes no difference, it makes things worse for you to tell them the truth, which is essentially arguing with them. And the reason that it does is because now you've unintentionally caused this person shame, right? You're going to correct them. And now they're going to probably do one of two things. They're either going to argue with you and say that you're crazy and you're wrong, or they may shut down. They may say something like, oh, I am utterly useless. I can't even remember what day of the week it is. I might as well just die. You don't want either one of those outcomes, right? It is probably farthest from your mind or your original intention to cause them shame. But that's what's happened. And so in the service of creating an ally and not an enemy, join in their reality. Don't tell them the truth. You don't need to be right about this. Okay, step one, I'm going to get through each and every interaction with a minimum amount of stress and tension. How am I going to do this? Step two, I will not argue with a person who has dementia. Step 3, how do I avoid the argument? I join in their reality. I join in their reality. If they think it's the 4th of July, woohoo! Are we going to go watch fireworks? Do you know, you join in that reality. And step 4, the way that you join in that reality, regardless of what it is you acknowledge what they said in the affirmative. You might say yes, you might just nod your head, you might say, Whatever it is, the goal is to acknowledge that the person who has dementia said something to you. They have a want, they have a need, maybe it's just to express themselves. But they said something, and by acknowledging that act of listening is an act of respect. And it goes along with your ultimate goal of creating that ally, not that enemy. Step 1, I'm going to get through whatever it is, a phone call, a face-to-face interaction. Take a breath, remind yourself, I'm just going to get through this with a minimum amount of stress and tension. Step 2, I won't argue. I will not argue with them because I'm invested in creating this ally, not this enemy. Step 3, I join in their reality. I can still change my mind. They can't. There is no upside in correcting somebody, which essentially makes them wrong. Okay? And step 4, I'm going to acknowledge what they said. So they said the spaceship just took off for Mars. All I'm doing is saying, I heard you. I heard you. I'm here, and I heard you. And that confers respect right there. Now, there actually is a step 5, but I haven't included it in the 4 steps because the 4 steps to me are universal. They should be applied in each and every situation, but step 5 is where you get creative, and it's different depending upon the situation. I often liken it to doing improv, where you have a scene that's been given to you. You're there to try and help your mother who has dementia take a shower. And she says, but I have to go watch the launch of the rocket that's going to Mars. Here's your scene. Ready? Go. Okay. So here is where you need to get creative. Go with that flow. Remember that example of balancing. It's not to get into balance. It's to, okay, what's going to happen today? And this is how I'm going to try and practice balancing. It's often stalling and bobbing and weaving. So let me give you one more sort of concrete, fuller example. So let's imagine that you are the spouse of your wife, and you're in your early 70s. And you're pretty healthy and you're mobile and you're able to live pretty independently. Your spouse, your husband, is in his late 70s and he has moderate stage dementia. Okay, that's your basic scene. So you wake up one weekday morning and one of the first things you see is your husband standing in the closet in front of a mirror, and he's got on a shirt and a jacket and he's trying to tie his tie. Okay, so this is the first thing that you see when you wake up. So employing the 4 steps, you're going to take that breath, you're going to blink yourself awake and remind yourself, I'm going to get through this with a minimum amount of stress and tension. I'm not going to argue. I'm going to join in his reality. So you might say, good morning, honey. What are you doing? And he says to you, what does it look like I'm doing? I'm getting dressed to go to work. Now, you know he hasn't worked in years and years, but you also know that that's his reality right there, okay? So thinking about the 4 steps and remembering that you don't want to create an enemy, if your knee-jerk, even loving, even kind impulse is to say, oh, sweetheart, you don't go to work anymore. what you've done, again, is to unintentionally shame him. So he's either going to counter you and get angry, and things could escalate. Of course I'd go to work. What are you talking about? Or he could do the shutting down. Oh my God, I am worthless. I can't even remember that I don't go to work anymore. Okay, that's why you don't tell someone the truth. Telling someone the truth is your need. It's not their need. So employing the 4 steps, what this wife is going to say is, she's going to acknowledge that he said something. She's going to join in his reality. His reality is, I need to do my tie because I'm getting dressed to go to work. So instead of making him wrong and starting the day off on a horrible note, she's going to join in his reality by just acknowledging that he said that. Okay. Now you get to step 5, where you've got to get creative. So one of the things she might say is, okay, give me a minute. Let me make coffee. Let me make you your breakfast. Okay. How about if we put something on over your shirt, or we bring your shirt and tie downstairs with us to go to the kitchen, but we put a t-shirt or a sweatshirt or something a little more casual on you just so you have your breakfast. And the day could go like that, where you are bobbing and weaving and just trying to kind of distract, but keep things calm. I want to get through this with a minimum amount of stress and tension that's going to serve me and it's going to serve him. We're in this for the long haul. If it's not about him going to work, it's going to be about something else. As this disease goes on, it is a progressive neurological illness. As it goes on, he may forget that this woman is his wife. He may forget her name, but he won't forget the energetic, calm, respectful tone that is set by her simply acknowledging, he said something. I heard you. I'm in this with you. I'm here to try and help you. Okay? So real quickly, the 4 steps again. Step 1, I'm going to get through each and every interaction, no matter what it is, with a minimum amount of stress and tension. Step 2, to do that, I will not argue, period, full stop. I will not argue with a person who has dementia. Step 3, how do I do that? I join in their reality. Whatever it is, it's real to them. I can change my mind. They can't. And step 4, how do I join in their reality? I acknowledge they said something. I say, yes, I nod my head. It's, okay. And then step 5 is individualized depending upon the situation, where you need to get creative, use your improv, use your go with the flow skills. So let me just tag onto that. The main barrier to employing this, to utilizing this, is unresolved relationship issues. So let's think of the husband and wife. And if they're both in their 70s, and let's assume they've been married for a long time, think about your own relationships, whether it's a romantic relationship or parent-child relationship. We all have unresolved issues. We all have experiences where we have felt not seen, misunderstood. Whatever it is, it leaves little scars. And as a long-term relationship goes on, we tend, even those who consider ourselves evolved, enlightened, whatever, we tend to collect those little injuries, those little scars. And sometimes we think, well, I'm going to have this out. I'm really going to talk and let my feelings be known to my spouse, to my adult child, to whomever it is. And with dementia, with one of the numerous sadnesses that comes with dementia is having to accept that you've run out of time to resolve these relationship issues. It's just the truth. That person that you have this relationship with can no longer do that with you. If they can't even join with you in the reality that today is Friday and the year is 2020 and whatever orients us so that we're on that level playing field, think about the nuanced layers you have to go through to really understand what are your issues, what do you bring to the relationship, what does the other person bring to the relationship, how fluid that is. And so most caregivers try, I think, unconsciously to avoid this because it's yet another layer of sadness. This is my partner who's no longer my partner, but he or she is still here. And now the roles have changed and they're like a child, like a toddler. I have to take care of them. What about my needs? And often that's just kind of overwhelmingly sad to contemplate. And so we push it aside. We have way too much to do anyway, and we don't let it come up to our consciousness, but it's there. Think of the tip of the iceberg, right? So you see the iceberg, a little tip that you can see, but underneath are all those years of relationship dynamics and a kind of just mournful sadness, really, that you run out of time to resolve those issues. They're just going to be what they're going to be, or what they have been. So again, using this dynamic, or this example of the wife who wakes up and sees her husband getting ready to go to work, even though he's been retired for years. What if he was the sole breadwinner? What if he was the sole employed member of their family and thus had more control over decisions because he earned the money? And what if the wife agreed to this on some level, but felt resentful and just was busy leading her daily life and never really expressed the resentment? I bring this up because, again, the 4-step solution is a paradigm shift. It's a different way to think about your interacting. It's like going to the gym and using a new muscle. You got to give it time, and then it just becomes familiar. And then it's just another tool in your toolbox to get through this journey that you're on. But if you can remember the 4 steps and they make sense to you, but you're running into barriers to employ the 4 steps, maybe not in the moment, because it's hard to have all those various thoughts going on in your head at the same time, but maybe there's a moment when you can think to yourself, I haven't dealt with the anger, the resentment, the hurt, whatever is unresolved. And so it's popping up, it's getting in my way of being that calm ally, because God damn it, I'm right about these things. I'm right. Today is not the 4th of July. We get this sense of entitlement, which is fueled by those years of those little hurts, those little injuries, those little scars that we drag along with us. So unfortunately, again, the heavy lifting is on you because you can ponder and contemplate these things and your loved one can't. Maybe they never really were available to you to do that, but your reality is that you can think about these things. More than likely they cannot, and it's up to you to try and make peace with that, because you're not going to be able to resolve these issues, and that is simply the truth of it. That gets us back to the need for support groups, your individual therapy. You can't do this alone, let alone the day-to-day tasks of caring for someone. And now you add in kind of a life review of your time with this person and trying to have your own resolve. Okay, so last bit I want to just talk about is humor, but let me just pause for a minute and check in with Alex and see if there are any questions or any reason to stop here for a moment.
I don't see any questions, but now's the time if anybody wants to either raise their hand or just type something in the Q&A. These are really amazing tips to think about employing in our caregiving, and to, to your point, Janie, really shifting mindset. So,
Yep.
Excited to hear more. And again, if there's questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat box.
Okay. So, I'm not, humor is something I love, something I absolutely believe is beneficial on numerous levels. It is so healthy to have a good laugh, right? It just engages your belly and it's wonderful. But my area of expertise is dealing with sort of clinical issues. So I'm not an expert in employing humor, but I want to just say a couple of things. One is, like I said, there's no question in my mind that as you go along this journey, the more you can find moments of humor, the better off you're going to be, as is your loved one. I have referenced before a website called inthemoment.com. It's actually in-themoment.com. And it was started by a woman who is an actress. I believe she does improv. And both of her parents ended up having dementia. And she did these workshops, and you can watch her videos on exactly what I was talking about in step 5, which is thinking about your interaction with someone who has dementia as a scene. And there you go, scene, and you just start throwing stuff at it. But it's very entertaining. It's funny, much funnier than I could do it. So I would encourage you to look for that. HFC also, obviously, is a specialist in humor. And I know that they offer a whole lot of services that can help you with that. But when I was thinking about this webinar today, I was actually remembering an incident I had with my own grandmother. So my grandmother was one of 10 children. And then she had 5 children. And then there were 15 grandchildren. So I was one of the 15. So what I remember about growing up is every time, this is my dad's mom, every time there was some sort of get together on my dad's side of the family, it just seemed like a mass of humanity to me. And I didn't know who these people were. I could never keep their names straight. Maybe my first cousins I could, and it just seemed like I was caught in this Groundhog Day, that every time there was a gathering, somebody would be introduced as, this is your cousin, this is your second cousin, your third cousin, somebody's twice removed. It made my head spin. And what I remembered distinctly is my grandmother, I think this was her 95th birthday. I'm not entirely certain. I know it was a big party. I know when my grandmother got to be in her 90s, and I should say, I was never all that close to her. I was always kind of intimidated by her. She accomplished a lot in her life, and she just wasn't one of those touchy-feely, hug-you grandmothers. So I was always kind of intimidated by her. I didn't feel that close to her. When she got into her 90s, and she really couldn't live independently anymore, she moved to the San Francisco area to live with her only daughter, my aunt. And so I do remember we were at my aunt's house. It was a very large gathering. It might have been my grandmother's 95th birthday or something like that. She lived to be 96 or 97. And so once again, I'm in this huge sea of humanity, and apparently I'm related to all of these people, and feeling no confidence at all that I can remember their names or how I'm related, and that makes, you feel a little awkward, uncomfortable. And I see my grandmother across the room. She's sitting in a chair and she's by herself. And I thought, all right, just go and sit next to her. Don't be intimidated. This gathering is for her. Go, and she's in her 90s. Go sit and be with her. And I knew she had some confusion and memory loss. At that time, I don't know if I feel confident saying she had Alzheimer's disease, but it was very clear she was a little muddled. So I went and I sat next to her and I looked at her and I smiled And she smiled at me, and it was very clear to me she didn't know who I was. So I looked at her and I said, "Grandma, it's Janie." And she said, "Oh, sweetheart." And she asked me to, sort of offered her hand, and we were sitting there and we were just kind of looking around the room. And I looked at her and I said, "This is a lovely party." And she turned to me and she said, "It is, isn't it? But do you know who these people are?" And that actually made me laugh because I didn't know who these people were. And I thought, she's as uncomfortable as I am. And there was something in that moment. It was almost this intimate little moment. And we both started to smile. And then we both started to just kind of chuckle. And we just kind of sat there together, holding hands, looking out at the sea of people. Neither one of us knew who they were, and yet enjoying that it was a moment that we could experience together, oddly enough, that it's one of my fondest memories of her. So it's not a laugh out loud moment, but it really was a very happy memory, and anything that can bring a smile to your face and can interrupt the sort of anxious, worried, concerned, sad, whatever negative emotion thoughts. If we can interrupt that with a smile, better yet a laugh, then it's a good day. Then it's a good day. So again, I will defer to HFC for their expertise in hilarity, in humor, but that's my offer, my anecdote about employing humor in dealing with dementia.
Thank you, Janie. That was amazing. And we also have a handout that I can share that goes over Janie's 4-step process, so I can email that to folks. Thank you so much for spending some time with us today. We hope you found this useful. Again, please visit us at wearehfc.org for more information. And we really hope that you all have a great weekend. Janie, thank you so much for your time today.
My pleasure, Alex. And we've got several support groups going on and drop-in groups. And so if there's anything we can do to help you, please reach out.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much. Enjoy your weekend.
Bye.